Hello, hello, hello. All right. So today's Google search is going to be defund the police. Um, so I thought, all right, why not start somewhere where a lot of people have varying views about it. I have a certain view about it. I think that defund the police means take money away from the police and put it to sociologically effective services that are less reactive, more proactive, and reduce crime in the area. Um, I was always of the belief that police increase crime sort of in the long term. Like, yes, they're a reactive force that they won't prevent crime, they react to crime. But the fear of police and the consequences that they deliver in terms of like delivering people to the justice system and the air of violence that they hold might be necessary if you're trying to prevent violence in the here and now, if you're trying to prevent crime in the here and now. Yet they sort of exacerbate it. They take away fathers from their children, and those children turn to crime later on. It's stuff like that. And there needs to be alternatives, was what I believed. Is what I believe, not was. But I'm just saying what my biases are. I'm not going to push on further about what my own views are. I want to learn with you guys. I want to go down the Google rabbit hole and see, all right, what does defund the police mean? What are the different interpretations of it? And I'll leave you guys, just based on my reasoning, based on my research, what's the best way to go about it. So I'm just going to share my browser. All right, as you can see here, I've got my cute little Google Doc. I'll keep updating this as I research stuff and yeah, keep you all up to date. So again, this is a boring research stream. Feel free to pick up some work to do, but get your own stuff done. I'm going to be working with you, and feel free to say hi in the chat and criticize me for the conclusions I come to in my research. If I come to lazy conclusions, if I Google something wrong, yada yada. Reasoning is a collective activity, and so let's reason together. All right, let's begin. So let's start with. All right. So we start with this Cincinnati.com. Public hold views of defunding the police. Varying views. So right off the bat, we can see the point of the article is just to highlight that very thing. So I don't think we're going to get much about the substantiation of the different views, like which views are more valid than others. We're just going to know the different views that are held. Support for defunding the police varies according depending on the poll. The first calls for completely abolishing the police. The second suggests abolishing and replacing the police with social worker, and the third advocates for reducing police budgets and applying saved funds to other social services. All right, so there are three views. And this article details complete abolition with nothing to replace it, abolish but replace with social workers, and then third is not abolish, just reduce police funds and put it to other social services. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get much from this article. I want to know more about the different viewpoints, but this is a good place to start. Different viewpoints. There we go. Abolish. Don't use towards other. Alright. Should I continue reading this article? I don't think so. I want to Alright, there's the wiki on it. Let's see what the wiki says. I've heard wiki gets a lot of flack, a lot of flack. Because again, anyone can edit it, but the way I see it, it's a good place to start. You know, there is a fair amount of scrutiny, and there are citations that are required. It's a collective essay that people work on, and I think that's a good thing. Alright, defund the police is looking at sort of divesting funds from the police departments and reallocating them to non-policing forms. Some seek modest reductions, while others argue for full divestment as a step towards the abolition of contemporary. The funding of police departments often argue that funds would go towards addressing social issues like poverty, homelessness, and mental disorders. Police abolitionists call for replacing existing police forces with other systems of public safety like housing, employment, community health, and other programs. Okay. Alright. Cool. Let's see what these sources point to. This one goes to The Guardian. Let's look at that. What does defund the police mean? The rallying cry sweeping the US explained. Activists have long advocated taking money from police and reinvesting it in services. The call to defund the police has become a rallying cry. At protests across America this week, and some lawmakers appear to be listening. Activists who have fought to cut law enforcement budgets say they are seeing an unprecedented wave of support for their ideas, with some elected officials for the first time proposing Okay. Thing about these links is that, yeah, they go to other Guardian articles. It's not reform, it's defunding. Failed. Another Guardian article. And I don't know, but this one is like proper news. Oh, my bad. Yeah, they all just go to. I hate when articles circularly link like that because it just reads like a circle jerk. But I also understand the need to not link to other articles because you don't want to give your competition money. It would help though to look at a study. Speaking of which, I don't know if I can look at actual studies on stream. I don't know what sort of IP laws and whatnot. No, let me change this to education. Actually, before this is education. Yeah, I don't know if I can actually look at studies on stream, like IP laws and the fact that a lot of these publishers for peer review journals might sue my ass if I put it on blast on stream. The paywalls, and I don't want to be using it rhymes with Sky Hub. I don't want to be using that on stream, and I don't. I'd never use that. Why would I ever use such a dangerous illegal software? But yeah, there might be some limitation on what I could research on stream, which I don't want to risk. So I will read abstracts of various journals and I will read analysis of those journals, but I may not actually read the journal itself on stream at least, but I will post them off stream on the Google Docs, just so you know. Groups have a range of demands, with some seeking modest reductions and others viewing full defunding as a step towards abolishing contemporary police services. Okay, how much does America currently spend on the police? In the past 4 decades, the cost of policing in the US has tripled. 15 billion, according to recent analysis. This comes as crime has been consistently declining in most cities. In most cities, spending on police is significantly greater than spending on services in other departments. Has led cities and states to make drastic budget cuts to education, youth programs, arts, and culture have grown and gone untouched until pressures. Yeah, I think that's the problem with policing, eh? It's like, why cut those things and not police? I can understand that in a lot of people's heads, like having a strong police is more important than those things because they provide like the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, like survival, security, or at least the illusion of such a thing. So, like for example, libraries, parks, arts and culture, those are sort of higher up the pyramid. Housing services, that's like housing security, but a lot of people either have that or have the illusion that they have that, and so, or don't find much use for these services. So this could make it seem like the higher ups have some sort of agenda that is against the average person. It's the way I see it. And a lot of people definitely are against that. Like, I don't think the average person is for those things, but a good handful of people would look at that and be like, yeah, there's nothing wrong. We need police for like our immediate security. Just a thought that went through my head. But police budgets have grown on or gone largely untouched until pressure from protests this week. How are lawmakers addressing the calls to defund? Late, almost overnight, and in a direct response to protests, some mayors and other elected leaders have reversed their position on police funding. The mayor of LA says he would look to cut as much as 150 million from the police. Just 2 days after he pushed forward a city budget that was increasing it by 7%, a New York councilman has called for a $1 billion divestment from the NYPD. Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, and other cities. Local policymakers have expressed support for some sort of defunding. Okay, let me read that again. The change in direction is monumental, but the size of the proposed cuts is not. Activists have said in LA Black Lives Matter has been pushing for a people's budget that allocates just 5.7% of the general fund to law enforcement. instead of the 51%. So this isn't abolition, this is heavily defunding. More broadly, longstanding abolition groups such as Critical Resistance and MPD 150 argue that cities should not be looking for minor saving cut, but should be fundamentally reducing the scale and size of the police force and dismantle the traditional law enforcement system. So that is also, I mean, this is still defunding. They're not, well, not getting rid of them, but it's still abolition. It's just much more radical than what Black Lives Matter is pushing for. But even the abolition groups aren't pushing for minor savings and cuts. They're not pushing for reform or minor defunding. They are pushing for major defunding, but not abolition. That can start with finding non-police solutions to the problems poor people face, such as counselors, promoting mental health calls, and addiction experts. If cities defund police, will violence and crime increase? Abolition groups argue that policing and prison are at their core racist and harmful and make communities less safe. They also point out that the vast majority of police has nothing to do with. I'm gonna look into this study a bit more. Yeah, like the fact that the police in New York did a slowdown, and that actually helped crime. That actually reduced crime, violent crime. That is posited that aggressive policing on the streets for petty matters can ultimately cause social disruption and lead to punish policing that punishes poverty, such as hefty traffic tickets and debts, can also create conditions where. So I don't know if it's just the circles that I find myself in, but I think a lot of people are on board with stopping the enforcement of petty crime. Maybe if you live in the more conservative areas, that might not be the case. No, I can't really say I know about that, but at least where I live, even the more conservative people don't like that. Oh shit. Okay. Yeah, don't like that. Yeah, there is this sort of enforcement of petty crime. Like, makes no sense. It causes a lot of problems that can be solved in other ways. But so maybe I won't look at this study, but because even here, like when they took a break from broken windows police, I have to look at what broken windows policing is. Again, I forgot what that means, but apparently means targeting low level offenses. Yeah, like I think most people would agree to that. Like if you wanna, I think a more effective protest that the New York officers could have done is we're gonna stop enforcing the violent offenses or stall offenses. Full anarchy for however long the protest takes, and then that may have, I don't know, that may have proven their point better. I don't know. How are police unions responding to defunding calls? America's powerful police unions have long resisted even minor reforms, accountability measures, and are predictably arguing, without evidence, that budget cuts at any scale will make cities less safe. They cited looting and property damage amid protests this week. They suggest that cities don't have enough officers. Yeah. Um. Again, so are there examples of police defunding that U.S. cities can follow? Yeah, like a lot of countries, compared to other nations, like U.S. spends way less on social services and way more for police and the prison system. Uh, but there's some correlation, causation stuff here. Police in America. Oh no, I thought I said people in America. No, it's police in America kill more people in days than many countries do in years. I don't know if I like this stat because I can. It's like a per capita thing, right? Like, yeah, of course, police in America kill more people in days than many countries do in years because there are more people in America. Let me just see if I'm thinking about this critically enough. I mean, yeah, if you have like a 300 million versus like a 30 million population, maybe I can read that study. But also, like, I get the broader point. The broader point is that the police, investing in police, it confirms my pre existing bias that investing in the police doesn't help in the long term. It's only like a short term response, and it makes things worse later. It's like being addicted to painkillers almost, or like some drug like painkillers that you take a lot of it now, it numbs the pain, and then later on, the pain comes back worse than ever. Shit analogy, but you get the point. That's what I got from this article. Um, yeah, am I putting it in the doc? Um, I think what this article tells me is that, yeah, it's just making the argument for defunding the police. I'm gonna look at the studies referenced though, and I'm just gonna look at more defund the police stuff. I'm gonna put this on the doc just to show that hey, this is what I looked at. Uh, I do want to find stuff that also disagrees with me as well and analyze that. I don't know if I like this article. this this goes further into police defunding the abolition, makes points about how investing in police causes more crime down the line, and how a study in New York showed when police stopped Yeah, I'm writing this down and I'm thinking like yeah, no shit. Crime decreased because crime wasn't being caught, but reported crime is the important. Yeah, which makes sense. Like I think the reported crimes are going to be. I have to read the study, but my bias, I guess the impression I get is that I think the reported crimes stay the same. It's just police catch more crimes than the reported crimes. I don't know if it's a good study or not, to be honest. Uh, but I get the broader point that U.S. needs by investing to correlate with reducing crime. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop here. I don't know how I felt about this article overall. Like, it said a lot of things that, for example, this like this COVID-19 economic crisis led to cities and state. It's like, yeah, that sounds bad, but you can understand people that have a sense of security from the police, white people, that is. I don't mean to be divisive. I mean that's just like black people don't feel safe from the police as much as white people do. So I don't know if I'm being too uncharitable there. Almost overnight, an indirect response to protest. I want to look at these, what do you call it? These reformist group, like, what's it called? There was yeah, this one. Black Lives Matter had been pushing for a people's budget to defund law enforcement instead of the five. And okay, so what is critical resistance in MPD 150? I want to see what these groups are about. Critical resistance, abolition. Okay, critical resistance. What is PIC, the prison industrial complex? What is abolition? The prison industrial complex is a term we use to describe the overlapping interests of government and industry that use surveillance, policing, and imprisonment as solutions to economic, social, and political problems. Here's a this diagram here. The PIC is a set of interests: guards, unions, politicians, government, private prison companies, developers, and construction. I'm guessing they mean police unions, guards unions. There was no comma there. Developers and construction. Powered by these forces: racism and xenophobia, sexism, capitalism, homophobia. Okay, that uses these tools: prisons, police, surveillance, courts, criminalization, media, think tanks, militarization, social control, as a response to these problems: poverty, homelessness, joblessness, drug addiction, violence, abuse, political dissent, mental illnesses, fear. Okay? That affects/targets these people: young people, queer people, women, poor people, political dissenters, people of color, immigrants, and produces these results: broken families and communities, insecurity, lack of public resources for education, health, recreation, housing, etc., fear and hatred, disenfranchisement and marginalization, more inequality, more racism, human rights abuses, violence. Alright, so just gonna reflect on I'm gonna read about this more. Alright. This is just like a very simple explanation against on the philosophy of police abolition. I'm guessing that alright, the prison industrial complex, this is what it is at its core. It's these things defined here. Guards, unions. So I'm guessing racism makes these people, I guess, indifferent to the impacts of people of color. What did I just do? Yeah, xenophobia makes you indifferent, I guess, to immigrants and to especially like people from Mexico, like the ICE detention centers. Like if you're non-Americans, you'll be more indifferent to the suffering they face in the system. Sexism, I guess there is that whole thing of guards assaulting female prisoners, but also male prisoners go through a shit ton of, yeah, I don't know if, I mean, sexism is bad and it does empower a lot of stuff. I just don't know if it empowers PIC. I just don't know if I can, I don't know if it goes one because it's black men that are the biggest victims. And even if you're a white man, again, like I think being a man, like white men, I don't want to say, I don't want to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just saying that blackness and maleness is perceived as more criminal than whiteness and femininity. I don't have to complain. I don't have to compare suffering with anyone, but I think sexism I'd have to look into more. Capitalism, yeah, because it's profitable, I guess, because of the cheap prison labor. Homophobia, um, are guards harsher on gay people, queer people? I know they are, but like, I don't get it. I like racism, xenophobia, and capitalism. I understand. Sexism and homophobia, I'm not entirely sure. I have to look into that more. I can Google it, of course. I can do the Googling for you guys. That uses these tools: prisons, police, surveillance, courts, criminalization, media, think tanks, militarization, social control. Yeah, I guess like if you fund think tanks that say prison is good and that capitalism is good and all that stuff, that empowers the stuff in the center. I don't think the think tanks believe racism is good, but they will overblow the necessity of the prison system, as far as I know. Militarization and social control. That's like media, I guess. That ties into media. I can't, yeah. I have to like look at more than this diagram to understand. Alright, chapters about what is. Oh, there's a history here. Structure and background. Community Advisory Board, join us. What are the projects? Breaking down the prison industrial complex video. I'm not watching videos. What's the other one? Did I put this in the Google Doc? Police abolition is necessary. Ending prison industrial complex. Diagram. It's concentric. I guess off of all the sources I've read, I'm just seeing a lot of missing citations or citations that refer to the same news company, news org. Yeah, let me just look at. But it is good to understand these viewpoints, even if you're not getting any like information from it. MPD 150, what's that? Okay, let's look at the 150-year performance review of the Minneapolis Police Project. I'm gonna download the. Oh man, this is a lot of pages. Enough is enough. 150-year performance review of the Minneapolis Police Department. I'm just gonna. Yes, we mean literally abolish the police. This is very much pro. The only solution is to defund the police. The police don't change. Defund the police now, okay? Alright, what just happened? We are still streaming, cool. This new expanded version of the Enough Enough report was scheduled to be released this spring of May 2020. Yeah, abolition isn't okay. What's going on? There we go. Alright, cool. Enough is enough. This is both the conclusion and the title of the report. A 150-year performance review of the Minneapolis Police Department. Hold up, this is just going to turn on my fan. My room is the hottest room in this house. Hold up, let me just check my phone real quick. Alright, back at this we go. Like fellow departments around the country, it has added the front end black, brown, and indigenous people putting them in job prospects. Okay. Okay, part two might be interesting because mental health, domestic and sexual violence, emergency response, and homelessness. If there are professionals doing active work to curtail these issues and they find that they are stipended, blocked by the police, um, then yeah, that's just putting more burn to the point of defunding the police. I do want to read a source that disagrees with me, though, but again, we gotta go through everything. So far, all the sources that Google just agree with me. I'm gonna find someone that disagrees. We'll actively find something. Reality, intimidation, harassment, and bullying. Base of the police misconduct iceberg of which murder by police is just the tip. Hold on, I'm just gonna get some water. And I'm back. Okay, this is a long paper, but I think I get its fundamental thesis. Policing doesn't work. Abolition is less radical than reform if we want healthier communities. Um, and the issue is more complex than ACAB. It's a complicated system with money interests. Uh, and again, it's going to. What other arguments does it make? Sometimes you sort of read things twice. Yeah. All efforts to reform are quickly neutralized. They stand in the way of other work being done to help communities more so than anything else. So, intro where we've been, where we're at, where we're going, findings. All right. The origins of professional. Just skim through this and see what parts I think I should spend the most time reading. Okay, let's look at why abolition, not reform, is the way forward. Why MPD hires. She shows why MPD would need to hire a marketing firm to convince. The former chief of MPD was forced to resign directly following the shooting. just seeing them on affluent white women by a black Somali American officer. Yeah. Okay, so to reform by diversifying the police, violence stays the same. Neither does hiring more women officers who are more likely to shoot than their male counterparts. I can think of reasons why that might be the case. Um, you know, I'm no sociologist, but I have heard many stories of women that fear men when going outside and need friends to walk with them, and how a man, because of their past traumas, when they walk behind them, they feel scared. When they walk in front of them, there might be the fear of him turning a corner and grabbing her. Women fear those things because of what's happened to them. Uh, Again, you're more likely to get assaulted by a close friend than a random stranger, but the trauma does bleed onto each other. We should understand that, and we should be accommodating and do things which make yada yada. There's all the stuff on feminism. But the moment you give a woman with that experience a gun and a badge, hell yeah, she's going to shoot. Sorry, but that's the survival instinct. You know, men are dangerous, men are violent, men will attack. I don't know if that's a sexist conclusion to come to. I'm not saying it's essentialist. I'm not making an essentialist claim. I'm just saying that due to sociological reasons, I can understand why hiring more women officers would lead to more shots fired. The primary correlation of an increase in shooting by police is not an increase in crime, but simply an increase in black residences. In 2016, a group of researchers at the University of Cincinnati analyzed 60 studies on the relationship between numbers of police and crime levels from 1960 to 2013. The data show that increasing numbers of police was not reducing the number of police doesn't increase crime. The researcher stated we can reduce police staffing some amount and use that money to renovate our neighborhoods and our communities. And I think that's better than just increasing the police. Okay? Promises to reform MPD through culture and policy changes are not new. They are futile. Trying to reform MPD makes about as much sense as trying to reform rather than abolish institutions in the 1800s. Countless individuals, as well as formal and collective efforts, agencies that over time started into the growth of the abolitionist movement. The notion of not only envisioning a Minneapolis where police but actively working towards a policing society is not as outlandish as some. Yeah, I don't think this is a good argument right here. The notion of envisioning, not only envisioning, but actively working towards the policing society is not like, oh no, nine mayoral candidates responded that they believed that, and one candidate replied, yeah, okay, someone like me might be convinced by that, and someone else might look at these candidates and say, damn, these are some stupid candidates. I don't think this is a good gauge of how to measure public opinion. look at the past and the present has established that the institution policing cannot be ignored. There's a our resources should be used to work towards abolishing it. Time to divest in the Minneapolis Police Department is now. To invest in community-based safety programs, abolition is the only way forward. The apologists for slavery often speak of the abuse of slavery. They tell us that they are as much opposed and that they would go as far as to correct these abuses and the condition of the slave as anybody. The answer to that view is that slavery itself is an abuse, and it lives by abuse and dies by a lack of abuse. Okay? Okay, these are like it's like a little infographic, I guess. Way 211 provides free confidential health and healing services information for people in Minnesota. 24/7 for crisis and non-emergency situations. Sexual Violence Center, Tubman. Okay. Sexual violence. Tubman provides. Minnesota One Line provides a safe, anonymous, and confidential phone and text service. Naloxone is a medication that can stop heroin and other opiate overdose. And you can get Narcan without a prescription at Red Door. Interesting. Poison control. Mental health emergency mobile crisis teams. Crisis text line, trans lifeline, suicide. Okay. Planting the seeds of that, which other ways we can mention police free will, what actions can be taken now to talk to your neighbor, reach out to a trusted community member. Take first aid and or CPR classes. Check out Minneapolis Community Education and YWCA for solutions. Pods and pod mapping. Who are the pods of people you can call on if you've been pods on the storm? We're at pods. Oh, maybe we'll look at neighborhood pods. I've heard about them. Okay, I get the vision. Basically, okay, I'll link this. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I got to read a whole lot of stuff, but I'll add this in the talk. Abolition. Decreasing funding of has on crime stands and me find sources that disagree with me. Okay, what are my thoughts on the sources I've read so far? Right now, they make like I understand the vision of it all, you know, like the arguments have been made that crime and policing are like non-correlated, it makes sense that if you take more proactive measures of reducing crime, like doing things that make people feel, make people feel that life is worth it and all that stuff, you reduce the need for policing, you reduce the mental health and the terrible conditions that cause people to turn to crime. I think reasonable people would agree to that. However, yeah, and then there's also how I write this in. This one isn't, so I'm gonna look into neighborhood pods as an alternative to policing. As opposed to passing I have to look into this more. As it stands, not many people own guns. Uh, if you have closer communities, then less crime will happen. You won't want to hurt your neighbors or people in your neighborhood to steal their bike. There's more mutual aid going on. I understand that. There might be some assholes, but if you have a strong community, you could deal with those assholes. That's what I've generally gotten from this. Okay, let me look at more on the police stuff. I'll get this Wikipedia page again. Rationale for defund the police. Where is my cursor? I am on leader mode. Okay, why is that? Why am I not? It's defunding. Abolition activists argue that poor track record of resolving cases related to rape and domestic abuse. Further argue that social work intervention and mass incarceration is focused on the call for the violence and its death. Washington Post spending has increased almost 25% nationwide since 1960, but there has been a minuscule drop in both. Okay, I'm gonna read this random source. Debatable. You have to phase it out. You can't just stop it immediately. It has to be phased out, and the need for the mid-match. Okay, yeah, this is just more of what we heard. Alright, let's look at let's keep scrolling down. Okay, this is from Brookings. I'm pretty sure Brookings conservative. I'm pretty sure it is Brookings too. Think tank. It's one of the concentric circles. Okay, I'd say it's somewhere between American liberal and American conservative, which, okay, whatever, let's read it. What does defund the police mean? Doesn't matter. George Floyd's death has galvanized much of America, proved that towards police reform ideas such as defund the police that were viewed as defund the police is reallocating or redirecting funding away from the police department to other government agencies funded by a local municipality. That's it. It's that simple. Defund does not mean in the long term police should be abolished. That's a big point. Country form. Fuck this shit, man. No, I'm not reading this because it's all this shit. No, no, I don't think this is. I don't think this is entirely true. A lot of people just see like, yeah, Camden abolishes police force and dissolves the local police. Yeah, this again confirms that police are very much overworked in places that are beyond what they were trained for. "38% of murders, 66% of rapes, 70% of robberies, and 47% of aggravated assaults go uncleared every year." Then, yeah, that's pretty ineffective. But something better has to take its place. It can't go from 38% of murders to 0% of murders unsolved. It can't go from 66% of rapes to 0% of rapes unsolved, you know? Something better has to take its place. And I know that there's calls for community policing, neighborhood pods. I'll Google that after. Stops relative to charges and convictions are relatively low to show how egregious this is. Okay, even this Brookings. I'm putting this onto Google Doc. I think this stat gets a lot of things wrong, but I think this stat the general vibe I got from these that are beyond scope, low percentage violent crimes actually solved. Alright, when am I gonna find like a good right wing source? Way. Okay. What does defund the police in Alberta? I don't think I'm getting anything new from this article. Next. Fox. what criminologists think on defund the police. What they say should defund the police mean. Okay, so this guy says it's absurd. Said stroke. Yeah, I think this guy, based on everything I've read, is making more of a point than this other guy, Peter Moscos. I'm glad to see I've seen another point of view though. Crime is rising. 350. Holy sh! This Republican fear of Biden defunding the police is just not founded at all. God damn. Interesting. 4% of annual budgets are spent on policing, while overall crime rates have fallen since the 90s. Much police funding in big cities goes to compensate officers and other personnel and their retirements. Overall, spend about 6% of budgets on police compared to about 1% of state budgets, according to an analysis of. Here's the thing though, right? Like, how much of that budget, just put it this way, I think of the police as a painkiller. Uh, the underlying sociological conditions of the cause of the pain. Like what else is being spent on, for example, healthcare? Instead of like, I don't know, healthcare and education, that cures the pain. 6% are still being funded on the police. These can be replaced by neighborhood pods, which I still have to look at. But yeah, I don't think the argument is that police get a lot of funding, or like it's just that whatever funding they get, police like the fact that they're asked to rescue cats from trees, respond to mental health calls. You don't need the police for that, and that requires funding. Why not fund mental health stuff? At least that's what I get from this. On attack to spend on testing former Baltimore City police officer. What other programs defunding more, but what does that have to do with police and the United States police and police to the world? Education. Cities by far the largest share, 40% of education. Institute analysis. It's more like, what's the point of a police if you just fund better? Like, the crime doesn't increase or decrease with the police. It's just the police are there as a reactive. The crime has already happened. By the time the police come, still there needs to be a justice system to hold the perpetrators accountable. I think that's a reasonable thing to want. There would be a community justice system. Like, yeah, the crime happened, but the perpetrator still needs to be brought to justice. But there are calls. I want to look into the alternatives to police. I want to look at alternatives to policing after this. Well, the one will be right back. People. Akbar argues in December 2020 California law review. that scholars need to take seriously activist calls for abolishing the police. Abolitionist demands like defund the police remind us that if we are interested in building a more just world, we cannot wage our battles during violence, litigation, or administrative innovation. Discussing the historical, material, and ideological dimensions of our demands and our strategy. Where we invest money and what kind of interpretation we build from collective development and thinking communities that will be able to identify things as they are. Who has what resources we want to do why. To understand how much such profound inequity. Strategies to build them. Police would be very happy to get rid of this. Yep. This. Take that responsibility entirely away from the police 24 hours a day. We're going to have to create a huge budget of other agencies needed to staff those functions 24 hours a day. I would suggest you know that as we go forward with these efforts, we're going to find that these are the community that would have to be essential to the I don't get that phrase, no matter who they give the responsibility to. We are going to be a central thread. Yeah. The responsibilities that police officers have, I think a holistic view I can get from this is that there are responsibilities that police officers have which are non-violent, which don't require the use of like a violent institution that's there to stop, I guess, legal violence, to stop illegal violence, that sort of stuff. Like a violent, but there's stuff that, like, mental health and all that stuff. If the police are funded to deal with that, that fund should be taken away into institutions or into organizations that are better equipped at dealing with those things. I think that's a holistic take I can get from this. University of Kansas criminologist forthcoming Stanford Law Review rejecting as a core function of traffic enforcement. Major obstacle to achieving structured cooperation. Yeah, I understand that it's unfortunate. A lot of black people get pulled over for going the freaking speed limit because a cop finds them suspicious, or that, traffic violations like, if you're rich, traffic violations, it's like you can pay to break the law. That's how it's not like it's not a meaningful impact on your wealth. Kidding me? $240 traffic law violation, you're a billionaire. Speed all the You can speed a freaking billion times, right? And that won't burn up pot. Yeah, there's no consequence for speeding, right? The benefits outweigh the cost for speeding. There is this thing I saw in Sweden actually, which enforces the ticket based on your wealth. Something like that, is much, much better. Handphones are using investing traffic stops from police. Last July, lawmakers in Berkeley approved a new traffic separate from the police department. Yeah, again, traffic's their violence, but not the I'm gonna threaten to kill you violence. Not the one person outright maliciously infringing on the bodily rights of another person, pointing a gun at someone, rape. Those things you might put in a violent institution to deal with. Traffic violations, they're mostly non-malicious, and a lot of them are just dumbasses behind the wheel that don't need a police. What is a police going to do? Stop a traffic violation? They're going to point a gun at someone and say, "Hey, break the car." I don't know. Divesting traffic stops from police. Last year, lawmakers in Berkeley approved a new traffic enforcement department separate from the police department. Princeton University sociologist Patrick Sharkey, in a June 2020 Washington Post essay he called traveling to Western Australia in 2017 pictured the work of the Woongar Protocol Patrol on the government sent patrol method to the Martian breakout fight between two young people before the police reporting that Maggie saw them make calls to this goes into like neighborhood safety teams. It's a government funded patrol, but it's a community thing. Yeah, if you have a community safety group that is connected to the people of the community, you heavily reduce the need for police. Yeah, Western Australia in 2017, interesting. Police presence and crime reduction. No matter what policing looks like in America's cities and counties, in the coming years, there's evidence that more police presence can reduce crime. A March 2021 paper in the Review of Economics and Statistics explains what happened when patrol cars in Dallas were called away from the usual Eastern 2011. The author, Tel Aviv University economist Sarit Weisberg, decrease in Dallas policy police away from their beats. What are beats? I don't know what beats are. So, yet again. There's also this evidence police presence can be used. It's a pretty holistic article. I like this. Examines what happened when police cars in Dallas were called away from their usual beats during 2009. 10% decrease in Dallas. So yeah, it's a 7% increase in crime. While the allocation for officers to beats may be driven by the demands of reality, the presence of these cars reduces the problem. Yeah, it's like it's some effect. It's just the vibes of a police car. Hotspot policing with lower crime rates. Hotspot policing can take several hundred channels. It means assigning more police to high-crime work and mediating nature of more bad enforcement. The authors do not generally observe results indicating consequences between high-crime and hotspots. Instances such as a hotspot program in Arizona from August 2008 to March 2009, where crime displacement. Research published in December 2027 by mainstream media found that certain types of proactive policing could increase crime. Aggressive policing of low-level offenses. Yeah, this is what we read about earlier. The fact that New York City enforcement of broken windows actually increases crime. Can reduce the crime. Amid a labor dispute in 2014 between NYC police and UP Mayor Bill de Blasio, officers held a work slowdown for nearly 2 months. During the slowdown, they harmed over 50 policing departments. Instead of complaints of major counts of burglary, assault, and grand larceny. Hitchens, the University of Maryland. Things spill over is likely when police flood neighborhoods experiencing people selling drugs will come to different blocks, she says. Sometimes police will be hyper focused on getting people off the street corner, but all of these are bandits. Have a temporary reduction in crime, but it does not reduce in the long term. Probably for a lot of reasons, but I think that is short-lived. There's no stability in the long-term plan, and they're not addressing the root causes. Based on her research, identified black men and women in Wilmington, Delaware, on their encounters with law. Co-authors of Street identified names in their 2017 sociological horror paper drawn from these interviews. Criminally valued. 28% support defunding the police. 37% were against the idea that the police should be abolished. 51% of black respondents were for 22% in support. Just like your average middle class, they want the families to be protected and sit out on their porch and drink a cup of milk and experience harassment from the police for having. They want to feel safe. What they do not want is the appraisal of basic treatment. How black residents view police and the defund. There's at least one group of people out of the defund conversations, being identified formerly incarcerated individuals. I know people are going to look at this and they're going to say something along the lines of, what is it? What is a, I'm thinking of a good analogy here. I'm running. You know what people are going to think about this thing, We've asked why. We've asked, there's one person missing from the legalized pedophilia movement, and it's the pedophiles. This is how it reads to like a lot of people. But I don't think this is a good analogy to make because a lot of people are wrongfully jailed. Every time you bring these people to the table, I've seen time and time again that didn't have a chance to put their thoughts. They not only have fresh ideas, but who's better versed to work on a problem than those who are most affected. The case of Camden, I've heard of this place. Police budgets sometimes shrink after recessions as jobs disappear, tax dollars dwindle, and federal funding is redirected. The Marshall Branch reported that after 2020, the new trust officer youth enforcement police budgets were cut into the recession. Okay, so see, I want to read that again. Camden disbanded its police in 2013 after the city host violence surge on Camden County took over in May 2013, formed a new department, the Camden County Police Department, to patrol the city. So CCPD, community-based policing tactics, along with YouTube. Okay, so they did this dystopian shit right here. Overall crime per 100,000 Camdenites. Okay, bruh. Holy shit! When I saw this, that was such a dishonest infographic I saw. Jesus Christ. Like, when I heard of Camden, New Jersey, I thought they abolished their police and crime reduced because of that. No, they spent more on their police. And that not only did they spend more on police, they did some dystopian 1984 video observation of 6-block radius of neighborhoods. Yeah, no shit, crime went down because of that. Camden got more money, Moscow said. More money is not a panacea, but you're not going to get better for less money. That's my issue with defund. It makes policing worse. This is a good argument against defund. Like, you've got to be smart about it, honestly. This isn't good. It's not good policing. I guess it does. I wouldn't even say it's the issue of crime. I would rather have crime than this shit here. I'm sorry. Fuck government surveillance, my guy. I don't know. Camden got more money, Moscow says. More money on a panacea, but you're not going to get better for less money. That's not my issue with defunding police in America. Is that simple? People generally want to abolish police. Think police don't prevent crime. This isn't the police preventing crime. This is, I don't know what community-based policing tactics means, but I'm guessing this shit did a whole lot more. Research published in the late 2019 preventive medicine reports also associates the new policing tactics in Camden with lower rates of gunshot patients at a major regional trauma center. On average, there were 34 gunshot patients treated for 3 months before the policing changes, and 26 quarterly gunshot patients afterwards. The ways in which police actively engage with community organizations, crime did go down in the city, but Camden is still a very poor and distressed community. The root causes that increased crime are still there. That's true. Shit, as a country, we are very primitive. If you get at the root causes of poverty, fortunately, attacking it from that angle has demonstrated time and time again as an effective way to reduce crime. Warrior Guardian. One way for communities and police departments. Yeah. One way for communities and police departments to rethink policing in America is to pursue a cultural shift of what it means to be an officer. On patrol. Stoveton. The University of South Carolina law professor has for years advocated that police should think of themselves first as guardians, not as warriors. He wrote Principled Policing, Warrior Cops and Guardian Officers, published in October 2016 in the Wake Forest Law Review. This philosophical shift is perhaps the most critical for beat cops, says Stoughton, because beat cops often represent the primary interaction police members have with law enforcement. Stoughton himself served as a beat cop. Yeah, what's different? Our beat just means territory that police officer patrols. Good to know. hate this word. I hate this word so much. Okay, this was actually like a very, very well written article. I'm actually copying this, putting this in the doc. This was probably my favorite article out of all of this. It was very holistic. Sometimes police defunding is good, or stretched too thin in activities beyond their scope. Abolition sometimes good. Even the violent interactions, what's it called? I.e., I'm not going to spell it. Western Australia community trolls know the community well enough to deal with them without state carceral violence. I can't spell that shit, man. Abolition, yeah. Oh. In case of Camden, New Jersey, increasing the funding of police actually reduced crime. Community-based policing needs clarification and surveillance worked. This is a dystopian solution. Actually doesn't, as someone else says, doesn't address the root cause of the crime. What else? There's also study of putting hot presence police vehicles, police reduce crime there. No bleeding community. My even cases where police reduce crime has to ask themselves, at what cost? Either both are just surveillance. This is like, here. All right. This research. I think this is good research. Should I read something more theory heavy? I like what conclusions can I come from? What can I get from this? Because I'm seeing a lot more cases of police abolition and defunding, preventing crime than I see of it. Like even the cases where they stop crime, are basically making a surveillance state, and I don't know how it makes people feel safe. I think it makes people feel very anxious, and it could ruin community cohesion because people are anxious all the time because they feel a lack of privacy. So even the solutions that work to stop crime decrease privacy. Yeah, overall, like even I don't know how to fix Camden, man. I don't live there. I don't know how to deal with the problem. But if I had to put in some percentages, I would say abolition and defunding are like 90, good 95% of the time. Maybe there are edge cases which I haven't looked at, but yeah. All right, I am going to put this Google. Let me see if I can share it. How do I share this thing? Oh, there we go. Yeah, all right. Y'all can comment. Copy link. All right. Thank you for chilling on this stream to the 0 people watching. Holy crap, has my headphones been up this whole time? God damn. Yeah, I'll be doing more of these later. Hopefully they'll be better next time. I'm new to this, so it's gonna take some time. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll post the docs and see you later.